Okay, let's continue. Actually, we have one more slide about the white spaces. Compared with other old school programming languages like Java or C++, Python don't use curly braces to create the code blocks. Well, if Python is your first programming language and you haven't touched any other programming languages, and just forget about this part. We are using curly braces in Python, but not to create code blocks. Okay, and often we use colon to create a code block. So when you see a colon, and usually this means we are gonna start a new code block. So for example here, so we have a code block, but right after the last line of this line, and then we have a colon. This means we are going to start a new code block. And when you start a new code block inside the block 1, the block 2 has to be indented. And then later, if under the code block 2, we have to start a new code block 3, and then code block 3 will be further indented. Okay, so we don't know if and else, but let me show you a short piece of code. Okay, I'm at my PyCharm, and I want to create a new file. And the trick I'm going to do is I'm going to click on 02 in lecture coding. I do a Control and C. I copy that, and then right at the same place I do a Control and V. Okay, so I want to copy the same file, but I want to change the number from 2 to 3. So okay, you see now 03 in lecture coding. I'm going to delete everything, and then let me say I want to create a variable first. Say x. Oops. I'm typing Chinese, by the way. X equals 10, and then say if x equals 10 colon. Okay, so we don't know the if statement yet, but we do know x equals 10 means we are evaluating two values, x and 10. Are they the same? So if they are the same, I print same value. And then I do an else colon print say different values. Okay, you don't need to pay attention to if and else. I'm showing you how does colon work in Python. So if x equals 10 and then a colon, and this colon means I'm about to start a new code block right below this line, right? So if you're using PyCharm, simply when you hit enter, you will find Python will indent the code for you, right? So similar thing here at else. If you hit enter, and Python will also indent the code for you. So if I run this code, and of course I know x is 10, we are gonna get the same value. Okay, so let me do something weird. How about I take out this indentation? This means, I'm telling Python with colon that I'm about to start a new code block right below line 2. However, on line 3, there's no indentation. And as you can already see, even though I'm not running my code yet, PyCharm has already given me the red lines. It seems that PyCharm doesn't like that, right? So if I want to run this code, and then, Python will give me indentation error. This means something about the indentation is wrong, and Python cannot interpret my code. Okay? Let me do something else. So if I do x equals 10 and y equals 11, no problem, right? But if I do want to add some indentation to the second line of code, and as you can see, Python doesn't like that. And if I run this code, I will get indentation error again because there's no colon here. This means I'm not declaring to Python I'm creating a new code block. However, on line 2, Python processes this line, and Python does see the white spaces. So this makes Python confused. Okay, so to fix that, simply delete the white spaces at the very beginning, and then we are good to go. So let me come back. Come on, okay. Okay, the next thing is comments. Well, in Python or in many other programming languages, and we can write comments, and the comments will be used for later reference. Well, Python or any other programming language, when they see the comments, they will simply skip that. Okay, so comments are not created to be read by the programming language. Comments is created to be read by human. Well, in Python, we have different ways to create comments, and the easiest way is if you start a line with a hashtag, or start part of the line with a hashtag, and then the rest of the line after the hashtag will be considered as a comment. Python will ignore that, but if we want to write a comment to explain what you are doing with this line of code, and that's perfectly fine, and I personally would recommend you to do that in your own coding projects, especially when you are writing 50, 100 lines of code, and later, after 1 week, if you want to come back and read the code, and it can be confusing, right? Or if you figure out a really smart or really tricky way to code, and you feel smart for that day, you need to leave a comment, because later you may forget. Okay, well, for now, currently I'm talking about one line of comment using hashtag. Well, if you want to have multiple lines of the comments, and of course, you can use one line comment multiple times with hashtags. But in Python, there's an even better way. You can use the triple quotes. Okay, you use triple quotes to start, and then another triple quotes to end, and then for all the content, one line or multiple lines between the triple quotes, they will be considered as comments. So let me go back to my PyCharm, and let me open the day 2 exercise. So at day 2 exercise, those 2 lines are the one line comments, right? So I use a hashtag, and then I say day 2 exercise. So this line will be considered as a comment. So when Python processes this line of code, and Python will consider this as a comment, Python will skip that. And later we also have this. So triple quotes and then triple quotes. So all the content in the triple quotes are considered to be comments as well. So they won't be processed. So coming back here, well, if I want to do some program like this, so print x plus y. Okay, so this is super easy program. So I create 2 variables, and then I print the sum of the 2. But if I want to add some comments to explain the code, I can say create a variable x with initial value 10. Okay, so I'm just adding this line of comment to explain what I'm doing here. And here I can say create another variable y, initial value as 11. Okay, and I spelled the initial wrong. Okay, and the next I can say print the sum of x and y. Okay, so I'm creating the code, and also for each line of the code, I'm adding a comment explaining what I'm doing. Okay, so this is a way of adding comments. Well, and for a program which is so simple, probably you don't want to do that, and because this will make your code longer. But if you're implementing a complicated logic or a code base shared by you and other programmers, and they will take over your code or they will maintain your code, it is a good practice to write comments. And another thing is, if you feel like this is really too long, you don't want to use a separate line for a comment, and you can do something like this. Okay, so in the first half a line of the code, you use that for coding purpose, and second half of the line, you explain what you are doing with a short comment, and this way is fine too. Okay, so but well, I may still say it's a little bit too much. The comment makes the code look verbose. Okay, I'm gonna do another way, which is triple quote. So create two variables and print the sum. Okay, so in this case, I'm creating a block of comment, and then I'm explaining what is happening in next a few lines of code, and this is another way to make the comments. So usually for the triple quotes, we use that to explain what is the functionality of a function or a module or a class. So we use the triple quotes to explain something big, and we use the line by line comments or one line comments to explain something smaller. Okay, well, and you're gonna practice how to add comments in day 3 exercise. Okay, and I guess this video is long enough, and I want to pause here, and I will see you in the next video.